You are currently navigating a social reality where your potential is capped not by your competence, but by your inability to bypass the subconscious defense mechanisms of those you seek to lead, unaware that every syllable you utter is either reinforcing resistance or architecting a bridge of deep psychological influence. The promise of this advanced linguistic protocol is the systematic mastery of vocal tonality, nonverbal synchrony, and cognitive reframing, allowing you to penetrate the limbic systems of your audience and command a level of authority that logic alone can never achieve. This definitive guide to neurolinguistic dominance is captured in Speak Smart, The Psychology of Powerful Communication by TechZone, a work that functions as a sophisticated behavioral manual for anyone seeking to transition from passive participation to high-stakes social engineering. By internalizing these psychological triggers, you will dismantle the internal barriers of others and secure a sovereign position of influence in every interpersonal exchange. To successfully navigate the high-stakes environment of human interaction, you must first master the neurobiological triggers that dictate the neurobiology of first impressions. In the psychological framework of Speak Smart, The Psychology of Powerful Communication by TechZone, a first impression is not a social nicety but a rapid, subconscious data processing event occurring within the first few milliseconds of an encounter. This initial contact is governed by the amygdala and the limbic system, the brain's emotional and survival centers, which categorize every new individual as either a threat, an ally, or irrelevant before the listener's rational prefrontal cortex even begins to process the content of your speech. Mastering this phase requires you to intentionally architect your presence, to bypass the listener's instinctive social filters and establish a foundation of non-threatening authority. The core of this linguistic protocol involves limbic system penetration, which is the art of communicating safety and competence through microsignals that the subconscious mind is hardwired to detect. When you enter a space, your posture, eye contact, and the initial tone of your voice act as neural keys that can either lock or unlock the listener's receptivity. If these signals are misaligned, for example, if your body language conveys hesitation while your words attempt to project confidence, the listener experiences cognitive dissonance, triggering their internal defense mechanisms and creating immediate skepticism. By synchronizing your nonverbal cues to project a sovereign presence, you soothe the listener's ego and prevent the activation of their fight or flight response, allowing your message to be received in a state of psychological openness. Furthermore, this chapter emphasizes that you cannot think your way into a good first impression during the moment of interaction. It must be a pre-programmed behavioral habit, because the subconscious mind operates at a speed far greater than conscious thought. Any hint of performance or trying too hard is detected as inauthentic, which the limbic system interprets as a potential deception. Influence is therefore gained by training your nervous system to remain regulated and expansive, signaling to others that you are a high-status individual who possesses the resources to lead. This neurobiological foundation ensures that your potential is no longer capped by social friction, as you have successfully built a psychological bridge that leads the listener from initial observation to deep, subconscious trust. To advance the psychological architecture of influence, you must master vocal tonality and authority protocols, a phase where communication shifts from the literal meaning of words to the neurobiological impact of sound. In the framework of Speak Smart, The Psychology of Powerful Communication, the frequency, resonance, and rhythm of your voice act as high-level linguistic protocols that speak directly to the listener's emotional centers, often overriding the logical content of your message. Authority is not granted by the complexity of your vocabulary, but by the vocal command you exert over the environment. A voice that is thin, rapid, or upward inflecting at the end of sentences signals a submissive psychological state, triggering an instinctive loss of respect in the listener's subconscious. Mastering these protocols requires the intentional regulation of your vocal set point. To project a sovereign presence, you must move away from chest voice communication, which often sounds strained or desperate, and adopt diaphragmatic resonance, a deeper, more grounded tone that signals physiological safety and high status to the listener's limbic system. This shift in tonality acts as a psychological anchor, grounding the conversation and forcing the audience to adjust their emotional frequency to match yours. Furthermore, the use of the authoritative downswing, ending your statements with a slight drop in pitch communicates finality and certainty, effectively neutralizing the listener's impulse to interrupt or challenge your position. A critical component of this chapter is the mastery of strategic silence and pacing control. High-authority communicators do not rush to fill the silence. Instead, they use pauses to create psychological tension and allow their ideas to be fully integrated by the listener. By controlling the tempo of the interaction, you signal that you are the primary driver of the social exchange, reducing the listener's skepticism and establishing a state of social dominance. This vocal mastery ensures that your potential is no longer capped by a lack of presence, as you have transformed your voice into a tool of neuro-linguistic dominance that commands attention and secures influence in every high-stakes encounter. To solidify your position of social dominance, you must master the mechanics of non-verbal synchrony and rapport building, a phase where the physical body is utilized as a sophisticated instrument for social engineering. In the psychological framework of Speak Smart, the psychology of powerful communication, true rapport is not a verbal agreement but a neurobiological state of mirroring that occurs when two nervous systems begin to resonate at the same frequency. By intentionally aligning your physical presence with the listener, you bypass their analytical mind and communicate directly with their limbic system, creating an instinctive sense of safety and lightness that dismantles internal defense mechanisms. The core of this linguistic protocol involves the mastery of biosynchrony, which includes the subtle mirroring of the listener's posture, gestures, and even breathing patterns. This is not a mimicry that triggers suspicion, but a high-level behavioral alignment that signals to the listener's subconscious, "I am like you. I am safe." When you achieve this state of non-verbal synchrony, you enter the rapport zone, where the listener becomes significantly more receptive to your ideas and less likely to trigger instinctive skepticism. This physical alignment acts as a psychological bridge, allowing you to move from passive interaction to a position where you can lead the physical and emotional energy of the exchange. Furthermore, this chapter emphasizes the role of non-verbal pacing and leading. Once you have established a foundation of synchrony, you gain the ability to subtly shift your own body language, such as adopting a more open, authoritative posture to see if the listener follows your lead. If they do, you have successfully secured a sovereign position of influence, as their subconscious has accepted you as the primary driver of the social encounter. This mastery of non-verbal cues ensures that your potential is no longer capped by social friction, as you have transformed your physical presence into a tool of neuro-linguistic dominance that secures deep rapport in every interpersonal exchange. To ascend to the level of a sovereign communicator, you must master cognitive reframing and perspective control, a sophisticated stage of social engineering where you transition from managing sounds and bodies to managing the internal reality of the listener. In the psychological framework of Speak Smart, the psychology of powerful communication, the context or frame of a conversation is the invisible lens through which all information is filtered. Whoever controls this frame controls the meaning of the interaction. By utilizing specific linguistic triggers, you can subtly alter the listener's perspective, allowing you to architect a bridge of deep influence where your desired conclusions are accepted as the listener's own insights. The core of this protocol is the linguistic pivot, the art of shifting a conversation from a problem frame to a solution frame, or from a cost frame to an investment frame. When a listener presents resistance, they are often locked in a rigid cognitive structure that views your proposal as a threat or a loss. Cognitive reframing allows you to dismantle this structure by introducing a new set of psychological coordinates. Instead of arguing against their logic, which only triggers further skepticism, you provide a broader context that renders their original objection irrelevant. This perspective control ensures that you are no longer reacting to the listener's world, but are instead inviting them into a reality you have carefully constructed. Furthermore, this chapter emphasizes the power of presuppositional language. By embedding your desired outcome within the structure of your sentences, You bypass the listener's critical filters. For example, asking how will we best integrate this change presupposes that the change is already occurring, forcing the listener's brain to focus on the process rather than the decision. This neurolinguistic dominance ensures that your potential is no longer capped by social friction, as you have mastered the ability to lead others through the invisible architecture of thought. By controlling the cognitive frame, you secure a sovereign position where your influence is perceived not as a demand, but as an inevitable and beneficial path forward.